Here is his tweet about it, and I thought this was interesting. He says, Clutch CEO Rich Paul and Simmons are in step with a move elsewhere. His tweet also said what you just heard him talk about, that it could be draft night or it could go into the summer. What do you make of that?
I make of it that they're having a tough time finding a trade right now that's going to satisfy the Sixers, and everyone's trying to prepare themselves for what it might mean if Ben Simmons is still on the roster in September, whenever everyone reports to camp. It may be a little awkward.
Well, and it's just silly. Like, you can't just say what you've said about a player, not that the team has, but all of these things that are out there, you think you need a new spot for him. So go find a new spot for him. If the best offers are the best offers, then you got to take it.
He's going to be as valuable now to an opposing team as he will be mid-season.
You think he's going to have a better season? Or, I'm not better, but
I think he will be better in the regular season than he was in the playoffs. Yes.
I think they could definitely change their team in a way that would make that possible. It's just a matter of, is the toothpaste too far out of the tube now?
That's a great term.
I didn't make it up.
The toothpaste out, you can't get it back in.
Can't get it back in. There you go. You got that.
I like that one.
I feel like this is like a reading.
Try it tonight. Try it tonight at home. Try and get it back.
Take a look. It's in a book. The reading rain. LeVar Burton. He's hosting Jeopardy. Check that out.
This was supposed to be a Ben Simmons segment, but welcome.
Love
to the show.
LeVar.
We'll be back in a minute.
Come on, Jordy.
Our senior NBA writer, the host of The Low Post, Zach Lowe. No one does the pause like you, but I do give it a shot.
You give it a shot.
When I can. Let's get to Team USA, because after a disappointing loss to France in their opener, they did rebound in a big way, beating Iran 120-66. The Americans got a boost from Coach Pop's lineup changes, including Devin Booker, Drew Holiday coming in as starters, made 19 of 36 from three-point range. Now, the U.S. cannot win its group, but it is important to finish as the top number 2 team by scoring differential. This gets a little confusing, but I promise you it is important. The 3 group winners and the best number 2 team will be randomly drawn to face one of the other 4 teams to qualify for the quarterfinals in that round. Basically, if you can be that top number 2 team, that opens up a much easier path to the semifinals. Richard.
Yeah.
You, who has played Olympic basketball and has had some serious double-digit wins, what did you take away from the 54-point win here?
Absolutely nothing. I took away absolutely
Really?
No, it's not to be disrespectful to Iran. Like, obviously, this USA basketball team, the standard that we will hold them to is much different. But to me, when watching the France game, the thing that they were struggling most with, and I know what Pop preaches because I've been there with him and professionally and in USA, good to great, good to great. Well, the definition of a great shot for Dame Lillard is when he can shoot the ball. Right? The definition. And so they were passing up shots and guys were trying to make extra passes. And like Dame's like, a good shot for me is if I can get it up from pretty much anywhere. So when they're trying and get great shots, you're like, Dame, you see Dame passing up shots that he normally shoots. And I think that's what they're talking about, not stepping on each other's toes. It's like the definition of a great shot for Devin Booker or Dame Lillard on USA basketball is different from the NBA, and that's what they're adjusting to.
So I'm not even going to try to do any of that math stuff about point differential and random drawings. Let me
I skipped that.
Let me simplify it all for you. We got the best team. This is the only time I get to say we. We got the best team.
Yes.
We should win. Yeah, there's going to be these hiccups of, I don't know how to switch and I've never played with this guy and stepping on each other's toes and blah, blah. That's part of the deal. Like, we don't have the continuity. These guys didn't grow up playing club together like even some of the guys on France did and all that. We should win. That said, it's not going to be easy. The days of this being easy are over. This is an old school dream team score against Iran today. We're not going to have a lot of those. France is really good. Slovenia is really good. Australia looks really good. Spain is a perennial power. It's not a guarantee that we medal, but we're going to have games where we look unbeatable, games where we look mortal. And the games we look mortal, we're just going to have to find a way to dig them out. We have the best talent still. Yeah,
well, and the one thing that, to your point about the where you seed, because we didn't play well in our pool, we ended up getting number 2. Now
this is back in 2004. For those of you who don't remember,
I am a proud bronze medalist.
Did you track all this while you were playing? I have no idea, because
the internet was brand new. There was no social media.
Internet was brand new?
In 04, it was still using AOL online. So, but because we finished lower in our pool, our pathway was far harder. We had to go Spain, who was the number 1 overall seed, because they had both Gasol brothers, all the guys. And then the number 2 game was Argentina. So we beat Spain in the first round, lost to Argentina. If we would have gone the other side, it would have been a far easier path. So even looking back on that in hindsight, you want to finish as high as possible in your pool because it can get very difficult.
2004, who was the best player on your team?
It was Tim Duncan, Allen Iverson. Everybody had their moment, but Tim Duncan was tough because of the FIBA rules. And Tim Duncan famously said, "What do you think about this?" He's like, "FIBA sucks." Those were his last parting words from the great Tim Duncan.
Well, my point was going to be that you had Tim Duncan and Allen Iverson on your team, and you were like, "But they had the Gasol brothers." But
yes.
My larger point, though, is that yes, it takes an adjustment to get used to those FIBA rules, as you're talking about, and it doesn't just take chemistry with the players between each other, but with the coaching staff. And we've talked about that on The Jump this week, about players maybe chafing a little bit under Pop's more structured system compared to Coach K when he ran the Olympic program. And you say passing up good to great. Yes, it's a good idea. We say the math problem in the NBA, 2 is more than 3, but 2 is more than 0.
Yeah.
So good shots are better than no shots, and it seems like they are figuring that out right now. We will have to see as they get through this round robin. All right, let's move over to the NBA, because the league released their key dates for next season, confirmed that the play-in tournament will in fact be back. The NBA's press release indicated the play-in will follow the same format as it did this past season. So as we take a look at some of the other key dates, you're going to scroll across your screen here. What tweaks do you want to see in future seasons, or do you wish they had made this time?
First of all, the whole thing is a home run. This is a no-brainer decision. Tweaks, look, the main plank of opposition to it is there's going to be a 7 seed at some point that is 5-6 games ahead. We saw it with Dallas 2 seasons ago. Yep. Should they be exempt, like they used the standings trigger in the bubble? The problem is this is a TV property. The TV networks, need to be guaranteed a certain number of games and inventory.
That haircut is not cheap.
No, I love it.
That money.
They need to be guaranteed a certain inventory. The tweak, so I don't know how realistic that is. It's just going to be painful. And that 7th seed, when it happens, is just going to have to, guess what? Win once in 2 tries. You should still get in. The tweak I want to see, my tweak, the number 1 seed in each conference should be able to pick its opponent from the 2 teams that come out of the play-in tournament.
Why? We want it to be easier for a number 1 seed to walk over?
Yes, you do. Because if you're the number 1 seed, that means all year, 82 games, you have been the best team.
Guess what? You're playing number 8.
No.
Look what we just went through this whole thing where it's like, what if Utah has to play the Lakers in the first round?
Okay,
what if Utah has to play the Warriors in the first round? If we get into that situation, Utah should be able to say, you know what? We want Memphis.
You have just capsized your own argument. What if Utah has to play the Warriors in the first round? Guess what? The Warriors didn't even make it into the 8th seed.
But this is what everybody was saying.
Guess what? Utah should have been able to beat them.
I'm saying I'm all in favor of giving the teams, if we're going to say the regular season matters, and the NBA wants
I'm going to do it like Greeny. I'm going to do it like Greeny does. I just put my sit up and just start drinking.
Look at my fancy shoes. If we're going to say the regular season matters, then make it matter. Give the number 1 seed a different kind of advantage. Give the number 1. Give the number 1 seed the margin to say LeBron is
Listen, I don't like it when mom and dad fight. So this is what I'm going to say. All right? This is what I'm going to say. At the end of the day, I understand your point. That's the one thing that I don't like about it is the 7 seed.
Oh, please. Put on your big boy shoes.
I agree, but I'm saying the 7 seed, you work for 82 games, and sometimes the 7 seed.
The number 1 side or the 7 seed?
No, I'm not talking about the 1 side. I'm talking about the 7 seed. The 7 seed, in my opinion, could be a 51-win team.
Right.
And all of a sudden, and if players get hurt or if something happens and you're like, hey, we could rest our players for the final 2 games to get ready for a 7-game series to really legitimately make a run at it. Like, that to me is tough to be like, oh, you're the 7 seed. You have 6 more wins than everybody else, and you got to go to a play-in tournament. What if one of your players get hurt? And I understand that is to benefit 8, 9, 10. That's what it's to benefit, not the 7. And I think the 7, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually we're going to have a 7 seed that just has a bad string of luck, and that's going to be brutal.
The flip side of that, though, is that one of the cool things about the play-in tournament is it's created this race for 6 that adds a cool wrinkle to the regular season.
That to me was as nice a lovely surprise of this play-in tournament this past year as anything else. It kept teams from tanking. I thought when Mark Cuban said, not tanking so much, but just resting guys, but Mark Cuban said, yeah, this is going to be really hard for us to stay out of 7 because we can't rest guys down the stretch and have the final month of the season not matter. And my answer was yes. That is the point. You've articulated the point.
But to that.
But here's what I would say. If I was going to do a tweak of what would trigger not being in the tournament, quote unquote, I think it's on the other side. So I think what they did in the bubble, whereas if you were too many games behind, you don't get that chance to play in. I don't know if we need to see the number 10 seed in each conference get this chance to make the playoffs if they are so far behind to 8 that they're not even relevant.
Oh, don't sleep. People are going to tank if they're in the 10th to try and get to the 11th. Right? I really believe if you're like, oh, we're in the 10th and we could do this, it's like, well, if we lose these games, because I think if you don't make that, then that's when the draft spots, you know better than me. So if you start losing games, because you're like, we don't really care about the play integrity.
Then don't they do draft lottery order after that?
After
yeah,
playing.
so
Yeah, but if you avoid the play-in, you're in the lottery.
You're in the
is his point.
Yes, but
so if you're the 10th seed and you're like, we'd rather have a lottery pick than to play one extra game, 2 extra games.
My changes should be adopted. Yours may be adopted. That makes no sense. Said, so I'm just.
I'm with Zach on the 7th seed.
But not the number 1 seed?
No, that's a little weird.
Thank you. We'll discuss this
picking
during
your
the commercial
opponent?
break more.
You guys are just wimps.
Wimps. That's fair. I'll take that.
We think that you should have to be a little tougher if you're
I've been called worse by better, so that's fine.
Man, coming up in just 2 minutes is Chris Paul dropping hints about his future on Twitter. There's some tea leaf reading going on around what has become his slogan, "Can't give up now." Zach, it is the time of year where we decode everything and treat Twitter as if it is the code book of I don't know what. Does this basically mean CP3 is coming back to the Suns, though? Is that how we should read this?
Yeah, when do we start tracking private planes again? Let's start doing that again. I think it's by far the most likely scenario, and it's just the mechanics of does he opt in and extend, or does he opt out to a lower number to help their tax situation? But I'd be surprised if Chris were on another team next year.
Look, I agree.
I'd be surprised if he opted out for a lower number. He fought for that higher number, and as the president of the Players Association, it's kind of important that players that age can have that number, right?
But he lucked out. He lucked out 2 times. They kind of, I don't want to say sent him to die, but they sent him to a place that they didn't think. But they didn't think that he was going to be as good as he was, and the teams weren't going to be as great. So I think he doesn't want to keep Schwartz.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go. Richard, I don't know if you ever tore down a backboard.
No.
But you did approach our producer, Michael Bodmer, earlier today.
This is not true. They were like, Richard, we're going to give you a highlight where you made honorable mention. I was like, oh.
We put that in?
Yes.
That goes in this compilation?
That goes up. Look right there. I dunked on Bean Bryant. That's like one of the highlights of my life. I was a rookie.
And look at that.
He was like, look at that. I had hair. Are you kidding me? Like that to me, like because I hold him in such high regard, that to me is I was a rookie.
It's a big deal. I'm with you.
I'll give it to you.
I was a rookie and I dunked on Kobe in the NBA Finals, and Zach's like, I'll give that to you.
Okay, it's fine. Okay.
We lost 4-0.
Richard. I'm impressed.
Thank you, Rachel.
There you go.
I'm
there for you.
Thank you.
Let's talk to another rookie of which much is expected, the expected number 1, Cade Cunningham. Look, he has been highlighted as the number 1 pick for months and is finally here. Earlier today, he spoke with our Malika Andrews.
So it is the day before the NBA draft, and I'm here with Cade Cunningham. And Cade, you only worked out with one NBA team, the Detroit Pistons. What were your impressions of Detroit?
I love Detroit. I think, the facilities were big time. The people throughout the organization were really good people. And I think they got a lot of things going for them in the future. So definitely a good organization. If they take me, I'd definitely be happy to be in there.
Did you get a chance to explore the city at all? What did you think of it?
Yeah, I got to look around a little bit. They took me to a Tigers game, which was cool. So, Detroit was a great city. The people there were showing me love. So my trip in general was just a good trip.
I saw you talk a little bit about the fact that you're not from around there, but you travel there, and all of a sudden all of the fans at the baseball stadium are chanting your name. What did that mean to you?
It meant a lot. That's, it's a baseball game. I have, I don't think I had any baseball fans in there, but, to have a different venue show me love like that, it was special for sure.
So it is the night before the draft. What are the big plans today that you just need to check off your list before your big moment?
Spend some more time with the fam. Try to, go do something fun tonight, have a good night before, and then, I'm ready. I've been ready since last week, so I'm ready to get to draft night and see what team wants to take me.
Are you someone who sleeps before big events? Like, can you knock out, or is this something you're going to be up a little bit racing?
I think I can sleep before like big games and stuff like that, but something like this, where I'm just having to sit in there and kind of hear my future. I don't know how I'm gonna sleep tonight, but we'll see. I'm gonna try to get some rest in. I'm gonna try.
Who are you most looking forward to sharing tomorrow night with?
My daughter, for sure. She's not going to know what's going on in the moment, but I think, down the line, she'll be able to look back on pictures and videos and stuff, and it'll be special for her. So, to have her there, I think that'll be special for me as well. You
mentioned that you only worked out with one team, Detroit. Detroit holds the number 1 pick. Why should you be the number 1 pick?
I think, just over the years, I feel like I've shown, through my play and who I am off the court that, you know, I can come in and elevate, you know, the people around me and organizations, things like that. So, you know, like I said, I feel like my game is shown enough, and, you know, I feel like I can come in and be immediate impact, and I think that's what you want from a number 1 pick.
So fill in the blank for me. It is my welcome to the NBA moment. Pinch me. I know I am in the NBA when I am on the court playing against blank.
I'd say LeBron James. LeBron James, just because, I mean, he got a Space Jam movie now, so, I mean, that's Space Jam. So, I mean, LeBron has been somebody I've been watching growing up, a lot of inspiration for me. I mean, he's been to the finals pretty much every year I can remember, so to be on the court with him, I mean, that's going to be special for sure, but definitely a good, you know, scale to see where I'm at, for sure.
Well, I'll be wishing you a good night's rest. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So much fun. Thank you, Malika. And I have news for Cade. It was lovely afternoon in the baseball stadium in Detroit. It's not like that in the winter time, but he'll be happy.
Great to be here with you. Happy draft week.
Exactly. And let's start with the draft. A couple of days ago, you tweeted that the Pistons were not, quote, fully there yet on Cade Cunningham with that number 1 pick. Has anything changed now that we're getting in on draft day?
Rachel, perhaps closer, but still not there and ready as of this hour to give a commitment to Cade Cunningham that he will be the number 1 overall pick. And listen, I still think that the Pistons are going to get there before Thursday night. But listen, this is a unique draft, and there are 3 players at the top of the draft who in another year, maybe even last year, would all be number 1 overall picks. I think Troy Weaver, the Pistons GM, and that staff just wants to keep talking through it, evaluating it. You know, I don't think it's any hesitancy they have with Cade Cunningham. I think it's really just about how good they think Evan Mobley and Jalen Green are.
Yeah, it's funny. I just left Jalen Green. We're having a conversation about that. He said, I think I should be number 1, which, of course, a lot of kids think as they enter the draft. But I said, did you tell the Pistons that? He said, absolutely. So he gave them something to think about there. Are you hearing any trade whispers or teams that are particularly interested in moving up or down as we approach the draft here?
Well, there are a lot of conversations, Rachel, about teams who, you know, certainly would like to get in that top 10. This is a tough top 10 to get into. You're going to have to give up a lot. And I think, you know, we saw the trade with Memphis getting that 10th spot. Certainly a lot of teams knocking on the door with Sacramento at number 9. But I think really the big trade talk over the next couple days is going to continue to be centered around Ben Simmons in Philadelphia, Daryl Morey and Elton Brand and their front office. They've been canvassing the league to see what they can get for Ben Simmons, and they're asking for a lot, almost a Harden-esque type package of all-star player, draft picks, pick swaps. Now, that's where you're going to start. And this is a player, remember, who has 4 years left on his deal. They don't have to do a trade by the draft or by the start of next season, certainly. Right. But they're motivated to find a deal out there, and they continue to talk to teams. I don't get the sense, though, that they're close to anything, that there's anything imminent, that they have a team yet that's ready to unload the kind of assets they would like to get at this point for Ben Simmons.
So interesting. I think that will be a story for us this week, next week with free agency, all through the offseason. I do want to get back to that trade you already reported. You just referred to it. Jonas Valanciunas heading to New Orleans, Steven Adams and Eric Bledsoe heading to Memphis. The Grizzlies also slid up to the 10th pick in the draft as part of that deal. And are you hearing anything about the Grizzlies in particular trying to move up even higher then?
I certainly think the Grizzlies have the assets now to move up again if there's a player that they target. But how far is it worth giving up future picks? How many spots is that worth getting up in the draft? I don't think they're going to get much higher than 10th. And I think being in that top 10 allows Memphis to get a player they really like there. And someone's going to drop to them at 10 that perhaps they're not expecting to drop today. New Orleans paid a steep price to get those contracts off, to get some cost certainty now heading into free agency. You know, that Lakers pick next season that Memphis gets in a deal, and of course going from 17 to 10. You know, Memphis has potentially 3 first-round picks in next year's draft, and obviously a chance here to get a really good piece at number 10. And this is obviously a team that's already gotten in the playoffs We've seen that young core. You'll have Jaren Jackson Jr. back for the entire season next year. Memphis is really set up nicely now for the future. In New Orleans, they've got cap space now to go out and get involved with Kyle Lowry, perhaps a Spencer Dinwiddie. And if those things don't work out, they can now match an offer sheet or re-sign Lonzo Ball to a deal. So they've got the ability to kind of shore up that guard position and perhaps even get maybe more of an established older point guard in there, which I know David Griffin's wanted to do to kind of anchor that team.
And it's interesting on the Memphis side, too, when you talk about adding draft picks to their core. I mean, not only did they draft well in getting John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr., the fact that those guys developed into stars early makes whoever they bring in now, they're all on the same timeline, really, which is incredible and not a position some of the other teams around the league are on. I do want to get to a non-draft item, though, because earlier today you reported Nets assistant coach Mike D'Antoni is leaving the organization. Is he retiring? Is he planning on pursuing another head coach opportunity? Why is he leaving Brooklyn now?
Yeah, definitely not retiring, Rachel. He came in and helped Steve Nash, who certainly he's had a long relationship with, and helped him through that first season as a head coach. And Mike D'Antoni was a finalist in Portland for that head coaching job, I'm told. He'd like to be a head coach again, but I don't think he wants to do the day-to-day grind of being an assistant again next season. If there's perhaps another role in the league somewhere else that isn't that day-to-day full-time assistant job, perhaps that might appeal to him. Obviously, the head coaching hiring cycle now is over for next year.
Yeah, it's so fascinating watching him and Steve this past season. Steve talking to us so much, Woj, as you know, about how valuable having Mike there was, especially when they had the transition with James Harden. There's
two people in a rowboat. Is that the Hudson?
This is the East River.
It's the East, like I said, there's East River. There's a rowboat out. Look at those big boats. Man, this is...
Director Kathy has all the good shots.
Thank you.
Welcome back. We are indeed in our Seaport studio. I'm Rachel Nichols, still here with former 13th overall pick. We're at the draft, so we got to pub your,
Not bad.
2001, and the #1 pick in our hearts.
Oh, especially with that haircut.
He'd go higher in a redraft, by the way. If you did the redraft.
Damn right.
You're top 10.
Yeah, I should have been top 10 then, but that was a whole nother argument, but we'll discuss that later.
And we'll get into the story about how you tanked your draft workout with the Nets, but that's for a different time. Let's get to the NBA. The Athletic and Stadium confirming that the league is indeed going to go ahead and implement the new rules we've been talking about for a while now. Those ones aimed at reducing non-basketball foul drawing moves this upcoming season. Now, during the NBA Finals, I spoke with League President of Operations, Byron Spruell, specifically about this change. Here is what he said.
Hunting fouls for the situations, unnatural moves, whether it's a move to the side or launch into the defender or a leg kick, things like that are creating that kind of contact. Incrementally, we may go to a no call and then all the way to potentially an offensive call too. And you got to calibrate that the right way. And we've been working very closely. In fact, we just had another competition committee meeting on Monday to really work through this so that we can get this moving forward. It's not per se a rule change. It's an interpretive change that would then be enforced on the court. But we try to accelerate this as close to Summer League to try to implement it and start that process then, because it'll be an adjustment for the players for next season.
So indeed, starting, how do you think this is going to change the game? You saw highlights of some of the players we expected to impact the most, James Harden, Trae Young, etc.
Well, first of all, some of the ones that we showed were actual fouls. But the thing that I don't like is that you don't protect the defenders, right? The defenders already have a hard enough job and the game is expanded. And look, basketball's still a relatively new sport. And as players get quicker, faster, stronger, they're able to kind of, trick the game a little bit. And we remember Kevin Durant's sweep through that famously went through the league, and then they started calling that on the ground. So I think that these are adjustments. You're going to see a ton of foul calls or non-foul calls in the preseason to kind of give players an adjustment period.
I'm sorry, producer Steve's yelling at me, but I had to look up when was basketball invented? 1891. It's not that new.
I'm saying relatively new as far as like the way this game is played in the modernized version of the game is relatively new.
You're saying just because we don't have peach baskets in the NBA?
Not the invention of basketball is new, but like you see players that from the 1980s till right now, what players are able to do, capable of doing, the format of it is far easier for guys to kind of trick and manipulate the game.
Some of those plays are just gross.
Yeah,
it's disgusting.
Yeah,
it's gross.
Yeah,
but It will be interesting to see how the enforcement goes, because RJ is right. Some of them are fouls, and some of them are legit. Some of those are fouls by the defense, and some of the stuff that looks gross is actually legitimate offensive play. So like when Trae Young goes around a screen and slows down and somebody runs into him, he's slowing down to map the floor and see how the defense rotates. Like, that's a foul. If you run into Trae Young, now if Trae Young jumps sideways or that's gross. So this is a step in the right direction.
Yeah,
this is a step in the right direction, but there's going to be, the enforcement is going to be tricky, and there are going to be some plays that are actual fouls that they're not going to call maybe.
That's not a foul.
That's not a foul.
That's not a foul. That's probably a foul.
Can I say while I'm here, if we're going to do all of this rigmarole, can we just get out of the game the clothesline in transition where there's a fast break and the defensive player says, you know what, I don't want to play basketball. I'm just going to grab this dude. And the play stops. We want to see dunks. We want to see fast. Look at all these. You can't jump sideways. What about the leg kick? How about the easiest thing in the world? Get that foul out of the game. It's disgusting.
It's a tactical move.
Oh, tactical. What a smart tactic. It's not basketball. That foul is a non-basketball play.
Trigger him a little bit.
Well, Zach, what you saw me asking Byron there is this just going to be a no call, or is it going to become an offensive foul? And he said they were working on the range of that. What do you think it should be?
I think it should just be a non-call. If you're going to start now, some of them should be. Now, if there's a lot of I think it can be both. I think some should be non-calls and some should be offensive fouls.
It's difficult, but to truly stop it, you have to make an offensive foul. If you jump backwards into a defender, if you're jumping sideways into a defender, you don't want to put it in a space where it's like, well, is it this? If you call an offensive foul, players will stop doing it. And, again, there'll be gray areas, but I think that's the best way to impact it.
And we've seen some of them called offensive. We've seen Chris Paul stop dribbling up court and dribble sideways. Like, he's been called for offensive fouls for that.
Yeah, you got to give the defender room to stop. And that's the thing that, look, we all love seeing scores in 110s and 120s. But when we get to the MVP race and we're like, look at these numbers and look at no one's ever done this. And it's like, yeah, because the numbers are overly elevated because of free throws, because of scoring. So it's hard to compare past years.
This is going to be the topic of a lot of conversation over this coming season. But this week we're talking draft, and our Malika Andrews still over up in Times Square with some of the prospects. Let's hear from Baylor guard Davion Mitchell, currently projected to go 13th overall.
Great number.
Spoke with Malika earlier today.
It's the day before the NBA draft, and I'm here with Davion Mitchell. What is there in New York City that you're like, all right, I got to get these things done before my big moment?
Oh, that's a good question. I definitely just got to explore the city because I've never been in New York.
Really?
Yeah, it's my first time being in New York. So just seeing like everyone around the city, it looks like a great time to be here. I just got to explore the different. Also, pizza. I heard the pizza's good here. So I mean, I'm not a pizza guy, but definitely got to try the pizza.
Yeah, you can just have one. And New Yorkers, they fold the pizza in half. So just do that, and no one will know that you've never had a New York slice before. I do have to ask you about Davion Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell, number 45. We saw the Damian Lillard tweet during your championship run. Do you guys get confused for each other? What was that like?
Nah, but Donovan is my favorite player. Growing up, even when I went to college, and I was number 10 at Auburn, and then when I transferred, I was like, Donovan was my favorite player, so why not have his number? So I had his number.